Hi, welcome to the Amplify Speakers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Sun, and we are here to bring inspiring conversations with leaders who are transforming how we think about leadership, culture, and human-centered performance. Today's guest is Jamie Tate. Jamie is the founder and CEO of Keystone Group International, a firm that partners with leaders and organizations to drive growth, strategy, and change. She's a nationally sought keynote speaker, a best-selling author of books like The Culture Climb, and the host of the View from the Top podcast. Her work challenges leaders to step beyond the surface-level fixes and build cultures that are resilient, human-centered, and ready for a rapidly changing world. Let's welcome Jamie to the podcast.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for being on here. So, Jamie, I'd like to start off with a little bit about your company. Could you tell us something about it?
Yeah, I founded Keystone 13 years ago after a kind of a long stint in large corporate. And we serve high growth businesses that are trying to grow, evolve, change, which everyone's needing to do right now in this market that we're all leading through. And we help them in three primary areas. We help them really understand where to play and how to win, not just compete. So true strategy, like where can you win? It's what your team wants, it's what the business needs. We help leaders understand how to drive change and transformation, which most leaders have not been invested in and given the tools to be able to do that. And then we do a lot of work around culture and helping organizations understand if their culture is strong enough to withstand the change and transformation that they want to really create in the business.
I love that. Out of the three, which one do you feel the majority of places you come into need the most?
Leadership, but they never come to us typically saying, hey, we need help with leadership. They have a strategy that's not being executed properly, or they're not maximizing their opportunity in the market, or they feel like something's wrong right in the culture. And in both instances, the root of the issue is typically leaders who haven't been invested in, but also who haven't been given the, like, this is what we need you to do, and here's how we need you to lead, right? Really care about people. Most organizations, and you see this as well, have taken the person who's been there the longest, or the person who has the most experience in something, and they make them the manager or the leader of a group, and they're not necessarily the best leader. And we're now seeing it, right, in a lot of our environments with the turnover and all of that. Is teams just, or people won't report to crappy leaders anymore.
No, they're not going to. They have so many choices. I mean, the statistics out there that the majority of people that do leave a company or they're unhappy with their company has to do more with the people than it is the job itself.
Right. And the company, it's more about the person and how that person. I read a stat recently that they did this survey with employees, and they said that 56% of employees admitted to trusting a complete stranger more than their direct leader. Those are the
Wow.
environments. So as a business leader, right, who's listening, it's like that's the environment we're trying to grow, we're trying to transform, we're trying to survive maybe as a business. And we've got employees who don't trust their leaders at all. It's the recipe for non-performance.
Yeah, it's really hard to get people motivated and to want to give their all if there isn't a foundation built on trust and purpose. Well, that is nice. What you guys focus on is extremely well needed. How did you find yourself in this space and helping out companies like this?
Yeah. In my large corporate space, when I did a lot of enterprise transformation, and it was when technology was really driving, all of that in the 2000s. And I was always the one that was asking the questions about the humans. It would be like we just spent millions and millions of dollars on this technology solution in a plant, or, wherever we were implementing it. But it was great. It was fancy, all sorts of bells and whistles. But if the human energy didn't understand, didn't see the value, didn't do something different, then we really didn't maximize the value of our investment. And when I started asking those questions, people just kind of started calling me the people person, right? Back in that, it was like she's going to always ask the questions about the people. And so when I decided to start my own business, I knew it was going to be focused around those things, but I also knew that I couldn't come at corporate executives or business owners and say, you just need to invest in your people and then everything's going to be fine, because they don't see it that way. So we had to start talking about strategy rooted in people, right? A human centric approach, culture rooted in people, financials rooted in performance of people. And so we've just taken this unique perspective that executives really appreciate.
I love that. Yeah, you're right. Because more often than not, the fix or the end all goal that they're probably trying to find is I want to optimize performance. I'm looking to make more revenue, and bringing any service in for the most part is the first thing you go is what's the ROI on this? And not everything is easy to match up as well as people make the biggest part of your ROI.
And that's my biggest thing for leaders, right? Listening is just the stats are now there, and you see them as well. Is I would say 8 years ago when I was speaking or working with clients, we didn't have the kind of data we have now that directly ties leadership culture to bottom line, to profitable growth, and we now have all of that. And so now the goal is to help leaders understand what this data means, right? All these surveys and data that we have, and how do they need to think differently about their own businesses.
Ah, that's powerful. Of the training that you do on the people side, is there a specific trait or idea that you focus or lean more into, you'd say, that you see a lot?
That underlines all of our training on the leadership side is what we call conscious leadership. And it's the new version of kind of what people are looking for in leaders. So it's love, care, and respect for the human first to then ultimately drive the performance. So all of our leadership programs are kind of rooted in that conscious leadership and how to be, a leader that cares about people, but also knows they have to get things done. And we've got to hit these deadlines and these metrics. And in balancing that, most leaders they haven't been given the tools. And so we're very tools and techniques based, very activation based. I think there's a lot of firms and places where you can get leadership development, meaning you can get knowledge, but applying that knowledge is very different than receiving it. The activation is where leaders grow, not just in hearing it. It's no different than the speakers, and what you do is you can have a speaker that just shares information, but if it doesn't spur action, if it doesn't bring people to activate what they just heard, even if it's one thing, then you're sending them to conferences, you're sending them places they're not really growing, they're just learning. And there's a big difference.
Absolutely, there is. There's a huge difference between the two. Taking all the knowledge we have and not finding a way to make sure they apply it and, like you said, put it into action. That's where the real value comes from. I love that concept of conscious leadership, um, and what you're focusing in on. I'd just like to dive in a little bit more. Could you explain, um, a situation that you've had to lean into one aspect of the three?
Yeah. I'll give you a perfect example of, I would say, what I mean by at its core, what conscious leadership is. So we have a general contractor, so large GC that builds commercial buildings, right, all over the country. And we were going into their annual planning, which is their executive team coming together to talk about like what are we going to do, what markets and what are our goals and all of that. And their head of field operations, who is the guy that like has the vest on and the hat most of the day, right? He's out in the field at work sites working with the people. And he sat down and he said, we're going to spend 2 days here together as an executive team. And he said, if we do not spend a big part of that time talking about how we help the mental health of our guys in the field right now, none of the rest of this stuff matters. And this was the same guy years before that when we started working with them that was gruff and was just like, we pay people, that's why they should perform. And just to see the transformation of him as a leader is a perfect example of conscious leadership, right? He cares about the humans because the humans produce the results for the business. But if we don't take care of them, and the reason he's talking about this is the suicide rates in construction in the construction industry have never been higher. And, we can sit here and say, woe is us, and how do we? He was like, this is what we've got to focus on, because if we can't get them performing, then it doesn't matter how much more we sell.
Love that.
But it's leaders that take the time, right, to really think about what's really going on beneath the surface, not just what they can always see.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfect definition of conscious leadership. Being aware not of the end results or the goals. It wasn't focused on, hey, we need to walk away, and when we leave here, this is what we need to do in the next 12 months. It was realizing there's a real problem that our employees care about that means a lot. And if we don't address their issues and the problems that they're having and fix them, why are they going to listen to us and what we want from them?
And any strategy we're going to put in place is just words on a sheet of paper if we don't know how to actually live it out, right? If we don't have leaders who can drive the strategy through the people.
Absolutely. It's that reciprocal leadership. If you're only going to get as much as you're putting into the person, if you're not putting into them, how can you expect to get much out? So talk about, you have a couple books. Can you tell us a little bit about what are those books about?
Yeah. So my first book I released in 2021, personal development. It was a bit about my story of success and kind of getting, as I say, getting to the top of the mountain and realizing like, like maybe where I was climbing wasn't all that I was cut out to be. But so it's called You Are Here. And it's really more of a personal development book about how do you get through some of the hard points, those stuck points when you're climbing, right? Whatever mountain you're climbing. And then my second book came out in 2023, and that's The Culture Climb. It's based on a lot of the work. We tell a lot of the stories of clients and the kind of work we've done to transform cultures and therefore transform businesses. We've got our own model, and we talk about that in the book. And then my third book came out last April of 2025, and it's actually a leadership fable called Surviving Greatness. I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro in 2023, and I came off of the mountain thinking I was going to write a leadership book, like an academic leadership book, like how to be a good leader. And it didn't work. I tried and tried and tried, and instead I just needed to tell a story about how we evolve, as humans and as leaders. And so took a very different approach to the third book, a little more fiction based. I'd like to think it's a combination of The Alchemist, if anyone's ever read that, and Patrick Lencioni, very fable based so that you can understand the concepts.
I love that. I was realizing a lot of the leadership books that I've enjoyed over the years are that fable story. Patrick Lencioni's great at. John Gordon has done a lot of them, and many others. But what was that like, putting that together, weaving in those leadership insights that you wanted to share with, creating a story around
Yeah, it was actually more freeing because it's surprising. I needed more help on this book just to make it good because it's a different kind of writing. But it was more freeing because what I got to do is say, what are my lessons, right? What did the literal mountain teach me? But then I didn't want the book to be about me because then people are like reading my journey. I wanted them to apply the lessons to their own life. And the best way to do that, right, is to write it in that kind of story form so that they see themselves in the story instead of just seeing Jamie's story. So it was actually nice because I didn't want it to be about me, but I knew I had all these lessons that I wanted to share. And so it was just the perfect way to do it.
that. Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that one out. The Culture Climb's actually on its way, and so I'm excited to dive into that one. Just space. When you're just talking about that, it kind of breathed life to a question. You climb Mount Kilimanjaro, and we kind of breezed right over that, and then talked about the book following, but that's huge. Tell us, why did you decide to do that in the first place? Have you done anything like that before?
Nothing like that before. I've always been a hiker. I joke with people when I talk about, I have a keynote where I talk about the climb. And I'm like, I'm a mom of four who lives in the suburbs. Like, I'm not a mountaineer. I'm not this like really glamorous mountain climber, but I love to hike. I love to be outdoors. Um, but the reason I ended up on Mount Kilimanjaro was actually not a positive reason. It was that being an entrepreneur, in 2022, I had the toughest year of my entire career, right? I got a business through COVID, through 2020, through 2021. We grew 40% in 2020, 50% in 2021. And we got to 2022, and I was like, clearly, I know what I'm doing. And then 2022 happened. It humbled me. I made some pretty big mistakes in the business, including hiring mistakes that hurt the culture of my own business when we do culture work for a living. And so I got to August of 2022 and was ready to sell my business. I was ready to be done. I hated it. I hated coming in every day. And it wasn't the people or our clients were still great, but it was just like, I just didn't like it anymore. And so I decided that I needed to do something that I was more scared of than where I was at in that moment. And the thing on my bucket list that stood out was Mount Kilimanjaro. So I wouldn't recommend doing this, but I signed up. I did my research, signed up to go with a guide group, and booked a 2-week trip by myself to Africa to climb Mount Kilimanjaro without telling anybody. Yeah. I
That's
eventually,
incredible.
people always feel bad for my husband, but I'm like, well, he knows who he married. Like, this isn't like the first time I've done something, like, but I knew if I told anybody, they would talk me out of it. And so I had to make the commitment to myself first. And that's how, so I didn't end up on Kilimanjaro because, like, of all these like glamorous reasons. I ended up there because I was in a really, really low point and I needed to do something to shock my system.
When you went there, how many were in the group that went up
Yeah,
with
I,
you?
I climbed with 11 other people from all over the world. So there was only 2 other people from the United States in my group. So, and most of them had someone else with them. There was only one other traveler that was by themselves. So that was actually part of the mental uh, work of climbing the mountain, was being there by yourself for 7 days on the side of a mountain, sleeping in a tent. Everyone else had someone to kind of go through it with them, and I had to just rely on myself. So it was a challenge.
Yeah, I can imagine. So doing that, being in the most extreme situation you'd probably been in, I'm assuming. What did you take away from that?
Well, the one thing I was hoping I would take away that I did end up taking away is, I'm stronger mentally than I was giving myself credit for. Because at some point, climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, it really, I mean, there's a physical component obviously to it, but the mental component is probably bigger, especially on summit night and kind of what you go through. And so I came off the mountain like, I can do really hard things. Like, it just reminds me, right? I'm able to go back there and say, if I can do that, as like hard as that was in moments, like I can get through this thing happening, right, in the business, or this thing happening in my personal life. So I think it reframed for me a lot of things. It also taught me that when, as leaders, and I'm going to say leaders in our families, leaders in our communities, leaders in our businesses, there's a lot of people watching what we're doing. And I had this revelation, like when I did this, of how many people reached out to me and said they were inspired to write a book, inspired to change careers, not inspired to climb a mountain, but my mountain inspired them to do something else. And it was this realization that so many people are watching what we do and what we don't do. They're watching us take chances and take risks and, do things that are good for ourselves and be selfish sometimes. And so it put a big responsibility now on that visibility that I have and that people are watching. So now I feel the need to go first, right? To be someone who's going to talk about, I'm very honest about the fact that I have a therapist and I have a coach and I've got all these people around me to make me the best leader I can possibly be. I'm not ashamed to talk about those things. And because I think we need to hear someone else say it's okay sometimes before we'll engage in that ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And It's probably why you have so many people that do follow you because you're showing everything. You're showing the human side. The human side isn't usually what's reflected on what people get a glimpse of on social media or anything else. That's the highlight reel. I would say for the vast majority, maybe once in a while, a little vulnerability sprinkled in.
Yeah. So it's the hard things that you choose to do, I think, that teach you more about who you are and what you're capable of. And I don't think most of us do enough of the hard things by choice.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. Most people sit in that comfort zone, and it's easy to just wake up, go to work, come home, eat, watch some TV, go back to bed,
Autopilot.
and you
Yep.
just go through day after day after day. And it's those that find themselves to get uncomfortable and push themselves into a growth zone. That's where I mean, if anyone wants positive change, it's really the best place for positive change. So, um, when you I don't want to just focus on that climb, but when you came back to work and carrying that different perspective, everything you went through, was there anything you're talking about some of the hardships you're having within your own company? Did you make any changes shortly after you came back?
Yeah.
What did those changes look like?
Made the biggest decision, took the biggest risk that I had made in 13 years of owning the business.
What was that?
And I hired a president to run it because I knew I'd been doing it for so long and I didn't have the energy in the same way that the team needed. Right? I had a passion for what we do, but I needed to be up and out, and the team really needed someone to take care of them and help them grow. And I couldn't do both. I'd struggled for years, right, to be up and out, be the person with that's helping to drive the growth of the business, and then also take care of the team. And it was a scary moment. It's a scary financial decision, right? It's just a scary of like you're giving the reins of your business to someone else to say, take care of my baby. It was the best decision I ever made.
Oh, I love that a lot.
But I had the clarity around who I was, right? How much my energy mattered, and I needed to make sure my energy was put in the right places. And I think for most of us, admitting that it's like I don't love. My company talks about leadership. I don't love having people reporting to me at this point in my career. I'm not good at it. I don't have the patience. I'm thinking about the next big thing, right? I'm a visionary, and all I do is just create chaos at times, right, with my visionary ideas. And it was hard for me to admit that as the founder of a business. It was really hard.
Wow. Yeah, well, that's very profound. You did, and to recognize it says a lot about your leadership, and there's different types of leadership, but to recognize that, hey, there's a opportunity for us to take this to the next level. This is the type of person that would be that piece that I think we're missing, and to bring them in. When you went to hire somebody, where did you go? Did you have somebody in mind that you seeked out? What did that process look like?
So, we have an interesting business, and that we're boutique, and we plan to stay boutique. Like we don't, we like the relationship we have with clients, and so right now, all but one person on my staff has come to us versus us posting a position and finding, like, it's been referrals. So my president was somebody I'd known in my network, and we had known each other over the years and done our own, done different things, and we're having a connection. And I asked her for advice about how do I do, like, right, all the kind of what's in front of me. And she was like so fascinated by the opportunity that she was like, what if I came in and helped you do this? And I at first was like, well, I can't afford someone like you, right? You're brilliant. And she was like, I want to figure this out. Like, I want to build this. I believe in what you're doing. And so for me, it was that feeling of like, there are people who believe in what we do. And I believe energy attracts energy. And if we're depleted as leaders, if we're right, the mindset I was in before that, and then the mindset I was in afterwards was what attracted success to my business. It attracted the people to my business. And I think most of us as leaders, when we're going through autopilot and running on fumes most days, there's not a lot of energy that we're exchanging. And it's hard for people to be attracted to that. So when I started realizing the power of my own energy and how I showed up in our community, it just started to attract people to the business.
Mm, wow. I think without realizing it, that energy it was creating pride, it
Mhm.
sounds like.
Yeah,
And when your pride is high and passion is there, it's going to rub off on others. And what I love about the hire was it, not that it didn't sound amazing on experience, but wasn't like we wanted somebody with this on the resume or this experience. It was a culture fit. It was somebody that shown that she believed in what you guys do, right? And that purpose. And I, I mean, that's why you do what you do, where you find places that maybe people promoted off experience and realize that maybe is the right skill set for this leadership position.
that's the easiest answer sometimes. It's not the hard approach. The hard approach is to find the right person. The easy answer is to find the available person, right? The person that's there and has the experience. And I don't blame companies, right, for making those decisions. Sometimes that is the decision you have to make. But in the long run, again, the profitability and the true growth, right? The health of your business is going to depend on those key hiring decisions.
Completely. I couldn't agree more. I think that the people are truly the most important part of any business. So if you were giving advice for somebody else that's going, I know I need to make a key hire. I'm missing somebody very important on my team. What would you tell them to go do to find the best fit?
Yeah. Tell them to make sure they create a culture by design and not default. Because if you just hire just to hire, you have a culture either way. So we have clients or people that come to us and say like, I don't know our culture, like I don't really know if we. It's like you have it, you just haven't given words to it, and you haven't designed what you want it to be. You don't have a vision for what your culture is. So our guidance is always think about the end in mind. Like where are you wanting to go? Strategy, and what do you want it to feel like when you get there? Culture, and hire for that, right? Not where you're at today, not pain, because too many of us, especially entrepreneurs, we hire for pain, what we need right now.
Mm,
And what we're seeing is then that hurts our growth 3 years from now because we're not hiring for the person that can grow with us. We're hiring just for today. And so that's probably my biggest piece of advice is hire, create a culture by design, know where you're going and find the who's that are going to help you get there.
yeah, I really like that. And leading into once again, it's not leaning into the experience. It's saying this is who what we care about. These are the traits we care about. When we interview, are we identifying those characteristics or those traits? And then are we carrying that into when they're working? Is that what we're making sure they're aware of? That these are important to us.
And for us, it's hiring for a growth mindset, right? In an entrepreneurial environment, no 2 days are the same, right? There's a lot of gray and ambiguity that you're building things we've never built before. You're doing things we've never done. And so we have to hire for growth mindset, meaning we've never done it, but that doesn't mean we don't believe we can, right? That growth mindset is not about our experience or if we've done it before or we've done it 10 times before. It's about we're capable of it as a team. Let's go get it. And so that's the most important piece for hiring. I could care what you got a degree in or where you went to college. It doesn't matter to me. It's all about your mindset.
Yeah, I completely agree. Those that are looking for more, not just showing up day to day. Yeah. So if you're going to an organization and let's say I think we made a hire too earlier. We made the hire and it definitely was the top producer. It was the top producer on the team. We went in there. Team just is not getting along very well. They're not, seeing that person in that spot. What advice do you give?
Well, in that situation, you have two options, uh, change the people or change the people, right? Meaning change the person who's there. Can they grow? Can they evolve to the person you need them to be? Or change the people. Make a decision quickly that was just not the right fit. It doesn't mean that person's not a great person. It's just not a right fit for what the team needs. And you've got to make a change fast. What we see, too many companies hold on and hope that it's going to change on its own. And it typically is not. It just continues to deteriorate. And they also don't invest in the leader. Leaders are so underinvested in. It's sad to me because no one's, and I mean investment, not just throwing money at them. I mean investment of time and mentorship from someone else in the business, right? Like we're not giving them kind of what they need in order to grow into the leader we need them to be. So I think you have to look at it from both sides. Are we investing and challenging this leader at the right level? And is the culture fit or lack thereof a big enough deal that we need to make a decision quickly? And it's hard. Those decisions are really, really difficult.
They are extremely difficult. I think, and they should be at least if you care about the people, right?
Right. Right.
At the same time, yeah, I think the advice I hear myself given the most is if you really care about the person, then you're going to either one, lean into them and develop them, help them get through this. And they're going to see that if you show that aspect of like this, we're not getting where we're at, but it's that tough love you might have to give your kids. And you're going to have to tell them things they don't want to hear, but they need to hear it because you care. And also knowing that, hey, if they're not the right, you also have to care for everyone on the team. And sometimes you can try to make things that just aren't natural fit. And if you're going to lose a whole team over it, it's not healthy for the organization either.
Well, and typically, and we've seen this time and time again, right over the years, the person, the leader that's in that seat is in over their head and they're feeling it as well. And typically they're relieved when you acknowledge it with them. Because again, whichever direction you're going to take, if you're going to work with them to try to get them, they're just relieved that someone else is seeing it because they're carrying that burden as well. And we don't realize that. We think we're doing it to them, but that clarity is actually kindness in sharing with them where they're missing the mark, where they need to grow, whether that's with us or somewhere else. But I think we owe that to them.
But we definitely owe it to them. And yeah, the stress and anxiety one carries, especially if they feel they can sense that the team is not maybe performing in the way you'd hope they would be, or the team just doesn't feel like they've got that trust and strong relationship to be motivated to do it. They sense it, they can feel it. So I got one more question to kind of as we start to wrap this up. You looking at the market today, and probably for the past couple of years, really, it's been a very tough economic and business climate. For anyone right now just going through and like, man, we're just trying to feel like we're in survival mode, what would be some advice you'd give to try to get out of that survival mode? And
So much advice. I put a lot of blogs out because I feel the need to be maybe a respite in the storm a little bit, is that if I can just shift people's perspectives just a little bit. So the first thing I would say, especially as leaders, and again, I'm going to use leaders loosely. I think you're leaders and you can be a leader in many areas of your life, is that we have to be the dealers of hope right now. And in order to be the dealers of hope, we have to figure out where our own hope and faith resides. And, what do we know to be true? That we can do hard things, that we've been through. I was just talking to somebody last week about like, think back to what we did in 2020, what we survived. And yes, this sucks right now. And there are a lot of things going on. But like, think about what we've been through and what we've figured out that we didn't think we could. And sometimes we have to lean on those moments to say, like, it's hard, like, we're in it. Right? We talk about we're in the valley between the mountains. And but you have to have hope. You've got to figure out what's one thing you can grab onto. And for me, it's typically that I've done tough things before, and I've got 100% batting average for getting through them. And so it's the, double down on me when things get tough. And if me means I can provide hope to someone else, then that's probably going to impact our business. So there was a recent Gallup study, it just came out, the state of the workforce, and it's global. And they ask all the employees that they survey, like, what's one thing you need from your leaders? And it's typically a word, right? It's kind of all these different words that they get. For the first time ever in 2024, because we just got the results for 2024, the word was hope. They don't need, right? It's never been hope before. And we've been talking about this for years, that like this is what leaders need to do, and we need to do it for ourselves. We need to find the light at the end of the tunnel again and know that what is happening for a reason. It's here to make us stronger. It's here to build muscle. And we're going to need that for something going forward. So instead of sitting in this space of, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to us? I look at it as, what is this preparing us for? Right? This hard thing has to be preparing us for the next hard thing, because there's going to be another one. And if we can look at our own resilience in that way, instead of it's happening to us, which is a very negative approach, I think it changes our everyday. It changes the energy that we come into the office with. It changes how we interact with people. And that is the greatest impact we can have, is on another human in our day-to-day interaction.
Oh, yeah. I love all of that. I really love just your explanation of dealer of hope. And I think that is some wonderful advice. If there isn't purpose in showing up every single day, they don't feel it, just too easy to want to give up or want to make a change.
Story, because it's literally hot off the presses. So
Yeah.
we're recording this right in the morning, and so I was traveling all last week. So I got in, and I had this whole stack of stuff to go through, and there was a package, and I was like, interesting. I wasn't expecting anything, and so this package came through with this book from this gentleman, and I was like, God, that name sounds familiar. I don't remember. With a handwritten note in it that says, "I heard you speak on August 6th of 2024." And afterwards, I came up and asked you about this idea. I had this idea to write a book, and you told me you need to do it. And you made one connection, one email for me. I had no idea he put the book out, right? And I may never even meet him in person ever again. This is our job as leaders. This is legacy. And I'm not sharing this, to like toot my own horn or say, like, look at me. This is someone I haven't thought of, honestly, since that moment. But I showed up that day in a way that served somebody else and created that ripple effect that many of these I'll never know about. Most people won't write me a note and send me a copy of the book. But that's what happens every day as leaders, right? We have that opportunity to be legacy leaders that impact other people's lives, that maybe 3 to 5, 10 years from now, they're going to realize the impact we had. And that's how I want to show up every day. Some days are better than others. But I think if we all as society showed up in that way every day, our world would look very differently.
Oh, absolutely. Man, what an amazing story. Talk about impacting a
I
life.
know.
And then getting, like you said, getting to hear about it.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything that can fill a bucket up more than that right there.
My entire week.
Exactly. Like that's how you're going to start off the week. That's a pretty good start to a week, to say the least. That's inspirational. Well, thank you so much, Jamie, for being on the podcast. For everyone listening, I will be sure in the description notes, take a look. You'll have the link to both Jamie's personal website, so you can learn more about her and her company, as well as I'll have links to her books and her LinkedIn as well. So that way, everything you heard on here, you can go quickly and easily and find it. So, Jamie, thank you once again for being on here. It was wonderful.
A lot of fun. Appreciate it, Chris.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jamie. Oh,